How's it going, everyone? Today I'm here with my DVD review of Hard Knocks, the Chris Benoit story. I was actually able to watch this DVD the other day, and obviously I'm here to give you guys my thoughts and review on it. So without further ado, let's get into the video and review. Alrighty, let's jump into this. Of course, on the cover here, you got a picture of Chris Benoit right there, Hard Knocks. That picture right there always terrifies me, no matter what it is. That's a terrifying picture of him. There's the crossface right there. The Chris Benoit story, it's simple but it's effective cover. Hard Knocks, the Chris Benoit story in the spine right there. You go to the back, got pictures of him celebrating, sharpshooter, crossface, the world title. Hard Knocks, the Chris Benoit story. Chris Benoit, widely considered the best technical wrestler in the world today. Don't know about that one. This is the real story behind the rise to the top of the business that he's loved since childhood. Relive the setbacks and the triumphs from those who have worked with him and know his story. From his early days in Canada, Japan, and Mexico to ECW, WCW, and WWE, Chris Benoit has earned the respect of wrestling fans around the world. Over 4 hours of DVD extras, just basically listing the matches. I'm not going to go over them. You open up the inside, there's disc 1, and there's disc 2. Here's the insert. Those are the chapters right there on the documentary. You can sit there and pause and look at them if you'd like. Here are the extras, basically just the matches, which are in the description anyway, so you can look in the description if you'd like for the matches. And then there's disc 2 right there, just a bunch of matches again. Then you have a few other extras like the neck injury, crossface collection, and Raw magazine cover shoot. But yeah, that's what the inside of the DVD and everything looks like. Let me put the insert back in. And let me try and put this back on the stand. Alright, now, going into this DVD, I put this DVD off for several years for several reasons. But recently, about a month ago, I got this DVD off eBay for about, I think it was $10.99 I actually got it first shipped. So I got it for a really good deal considering it's out of print. And, you know, going into it, I didn't really have any expectations at all. But coming out of the DVD, I was honestly very surprised, and I actually thought this DVD was awesome. The documentary was awesome, I thought. The matches were spectacular. Honestly, this DVD was amazing. I'd honestly say it's probably one of the best DVDs I've seen from WWE. Like, top to bottom, documentary is awesome. The matches are absolutely phenomenal. It's an awesome produced DVD. And, you know, after watching the documentary, it's like, man, like, it's really a shame that none of this is acknowledged anymore considering what happened with him and everything. It's really sad to think that, but, you know, when you watch this, you just have a great time. It's very enjoyable. I had a blast watching it. And just like I said, after you're done watching, it's just, you think about it, it's like, man, it's a shame that none of this will ever go acknowledged anymore. I mean, the fans will know, but like WWE will never acknowledge it, and you know the hard work that he put in just to be thrown away by that one weekend. It's terrible. It's a terrible tragedy, and it sucks. It sucks that happened, and basically everything he worked for was thrown away in that one weekend. But life happens, and he made a terrible mistake that weekend. And, you can't really do anything to change it. But, going to the documentary, like I said, it's about an hour and 20 minutes, so it's not very long. But it's awesome. I really enjoyed it. I thought the way it was produced with him going to school and him visiting the Hart house was just awesome. I really enjoyed it. The documentary started off, talking about him as a kid growing up in Edmonton. And how, when he saw Dynamite Kid, that's what got him into wrestling. And, Dynamite Kid basically had the influence on him to become a wrestler. He wanted to be just like him, look just like him. He's, built like him. He tried to look like him. Even, him and his friend even shaved their heads bald to be like him. And then, realized what a dumb decision that was. Talked about how in high school he would actually ditch class, to work out in the gym. Or, he would be late to class because he was working out in the gym. Just to get that, physique, because, he was a small person, so he tried to get that physique to be a wrestler. And he talked about how, he would go to local shows, and, get to the point where he'd go to local shows so early that he'd start setting up, like, the chairs and, even the ring. It got to the point where, he was introduced to the wrestlers, to start get training, and he went down to Calgary to train with the Harts in the Hart dungeon. After that point, and he talked about how he had to travel, to do his first matches. Like he'd have to travel from Edmonton to to Calgary or to whatever. To do matches, and his parents, his mom was concerned, but his dad was kind of like, do your own thing, and just he had to travel, keep in mind, this is when he's like still a teenager, he's like 16, 17 still, so he was still in high school when he was doing this, so, to do that as a kid, it's like, whoa, that's a big deal, and then, getting to New Japan, going to Japan, he was told he had to go there for a year, he talked about the first 6 months he was there, he absolutely hated it, he hated the, he didn't hate the people, he didn't know how to speak the language, he didn't like the food, he just didn't like the environment he was in, but when he came back, it was put in perspective, for him, those are things you gotta do, some wrestlers have been in Japan, they pretty much, talked him, into, accepting it, and Benoit went there with, newfound respect for Japan, and, pretty much, accepted the environment, and went with it, and, talked about how he became the Pegasus Kid, how they put a mask on him, and, he was kind of like, what? He was kind of confused at first because, he's never wrestled as a mask, and the mask is hard to breathe in, and it was very tight. And he didn't like it at first, but then, eventually he adapted to it, and by the time he was comfortable as being Pegasus Kid, he took the mask off him, and, he became the Wild Pegasus from there. And he talked about in Japan how he met guys like Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, and Chris Jericho, met them and became, great friends with them, and, they basically broke into the business together. Not broke into business, but, they made a name for themselves in Japan, ECW, then WCW, then WWE, so they all went a similar route. So that was pretty cool. He talked about how he went into ECW, Paul Heyman called it up, and, he went to ECW, his feud with Too Cold Scorpio, how, it's put on great matches, and, he was a guy that, you pretty much throw in the ring with him, and it's almost guaranteed to be a really good match. And, talked about the Sabu thing, where we threw Sabu in the air. What would happen was he threw him in the air, and Sabu was supposed to land on his stomach, but Sabu at the last minute decided to land on his back, in which, basically Sabu DDT'd himself and broke his neck, and how the next day, Chris Benoit called, Paul Heyman to see how Sabu was doing, and the only thing Paul Heyman was telling him was, oh, I had this awesome idea, you broke his neck, we're going to name you the Crippler, you're going to be the Crippler Chris Benoit, it's going to be awesome, and Benoit's like, well, is Sabu okay? Who cares, you're going to be the Crippler, you're Chris Benoit the Crippler. It's like, he tried to see how Sabu was doing, and all Paul Heyman was telling him how awesome this awesome idea he has for him now as a Crippler, so that was pretty funny, I thought. Pretty dick move of Paul Heyman to think about it, because, this guy broke his neck, and the only concern was giving this guy a gimmick, but, it was pretty funny. And so he became a Crippler, and he talked about how he had to leave ECW because of, visa issues. He pretty much, Paul Heyman would tell him, oh, don't worry about it, my dad's handling it, you'll have a visa, and, got to the point where, he got held up at, what the hell was it called? Is it border control? I don't know what it's called. Where you basically, you got to check in to go to the other country. I think it's called border control. He got held up once, and they basically told him, hey, we know what you're doing, and, if we get caught, you're pretty much screwed. So, Benoit basically told him, I need a visa now, or, I can't work for you. He's like, oh, I'll get it. Just don't worry about it. Come in tomorrow. He's like, no, dude, I can't work for you if you're not going to give me a visa. He's like, oh, no, we'll get you one. And, Benoit was like, you know what? You're not going to get me one. I'm not going to work for you anymore. So, it was a decision that he had to make because, if he would have got caught working without a visa, he would have got a lot more trouble. So, he stopped working for ECW because of visa issues. Then he talked about how he had to offer, or he had to try out for WWF, and, he wanted to go to WWF, but, he wanted to work for Japan and WWF at the same time, but they wouldn't allow him. They just wanted to be exclusive to WWF. So he went to WCW because they're doing the talent exchange at the time. So he's like, oh, I get to work for WCW in Japan. But when they started doing that, very quickly after that, they stopped working with Japan. So very soon, he became just an WCW exclusive. So he kind of, he signed for them to be in Japan, but they kind of cut it off early, so he didn't really have the chance to go to Japan all that often. So I worked in WCW, talked about joining the Four Horsemen, how they reconciled it, and they made a new version of it, and they basically said that it wasn't going to work, but it ended up working. It got over, but, stuff happened. And then he talked about his feud with Kevin Sullivan, the big conspiracy theory. Everyone knows about that. Well, not back then, but, currently. Everyone has their theories about, Chris Benoit, Ken Sullivan. But back then, he basically talked about how, they never liked each other and they had personal beef backstage, and, they never liked each other. But in the ring-wise, they always kept professional. They never, did, like, shoot fighting. It was just professional wrestling. But, backstage and personal, they absolutely hated each other. And he talked about his Best of 7 series with Booker T, how that was an awesome series they did, and they put on great matches every time. They talked about Owen Hart passing away, how, him and Owen were very close, and Owen was a big influence on him, and, when he passed, it was pretty hard. And he talked about his tribute match with Bret Hart, where, it wasn't a match to have a great match, it's basically just a match to pay tribute to Owen Hart on Nitro, which was a phenomenal match I had. So that was good stuff. And he talked about, winning the WCW World title, how he didn't like the way he won it. He didn't win it because of opportunity. He wanted it strictly because of politics back then, and that was one of the reasons why he wanted to leave WCW. Just the politics was so bad. He didn't win the title for opportunity. He wanted it purely out of politics, and he hated that reason. He didn't want to win the title, but he won it because he was told to win it, and he hated that reason of winning it, which would lead to him going to WWE in early 2000. And, having his first WrestleMania match, that three-way two-fall match where he became the Intercontinental Champion at his first WrestleMania. And that was like a revelation of like, wow, I'm at WrestleMania. Like, this is the show I used to watch as a kid, and now I'm there winning the Intercontinental Championship in my first WrestleMania. It was such a phenomenal moment for him, he said. And he talked about his feud with The Rock later in 2000, which was an awesome feud. It's very underrated, by the way. Their match at Fully Loaded 2000 was awesome. But, like, he talked about how working with The Rock was, like, a huge stepping stone for him because, this guy just came to the WWF, earlier on that year, and, towards the end of it, he's feuding with The Rock for the WWF Championship. So it was a huge milestone for him, and that was a good, way to get his foot in the door of the main event scene. And then he talked about, Mania 17, his match with Kurt Angle, how they just put on a pure wrestling classic there at WrestleMania. Awesome match. Just talked about how, him going in the ring with a Olympic, wrestler as Kurt Angle. It's almost like guaranteed to have a phenomenal match every time with him. And he talked about, injuring his neck in 2001 when he did the dive. His neck was injuring him still, but it wasn't until that dive in the steel cage, the headbutt of the steel cage, that really messed his neck up. So he had to, get fusion in his neck. And it's actually kind of ironic because when you watch this, his neck injury, is very similar to Daniel Bryan's currently. His arm was losing feeling. It's very similar, so it's kind of, I thought it was kind of ironic. But yeah, he talked about he had a good neck injury. He was out for almost a year. He came back in 2002. 2003 Royal Rumble match with Kurt Angle, which was a pure classic. One of, if not the best, Chris Benoit match. And you can argue of all time or just argue in WWE, but definitely a phenomenal match with Kurt Angle at the Royal Rumble 2003, absolutely spectacular. And then he talked about going into the Royal Rumble 2004, how he's the #1 entry, went in there, won it at #1, being the second person to do that, the first being Shawn Michaels. So he talked about how huge of an honor it was to not only win it, but win it at #1, be the second guy to win it, next to Shawn Michaels. Like, that was a huge deal. And then last, he talked about WrestleMania 20, going in against Shawn Michaels and Triple H, having that classic encounter, and having that WrestleMania moment of him win the title, and Eddie being behind him, and that phenomenal image of him and Eddie, holding the titles up and hugging each other at WrestleMania 20, just that phenomenal moment. And the DVD ended with a spectacular video package, just to, pretty much highlight his career. So, this documentary is awesome. Phenomenal documentary. The DVD set in general is awesome as well. It's a phenomenal DVD set. Definitely recommend getting it if you have the chance to get it, for a good price. I got it for like $10.99, like I said. That's very, very cheap for this DVD. So if you can get it. It's a phenomenal DVD. It's a must-have in my opinion. Regardless of your feelings about him, I never really had positive, feelings about Chris Benoit. But after watching this, I'm not saying those feelings changed, but it's like, man, it really was like tragedy for what happened. It really sucks. He'll never be acknowledged, and especially the hard journey when you watch. Like, you definitely tell he had a hard journey to go through, and basically for us to be acknowledged more, it really sucks. It really sucks. But thank you guys for watching this video. Leave your guys' thoughts and comments below on this video, or on the DVD itself if you've seen it or not. What your guys' thoughts on it and everything about it. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching this video.